Good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. I apologize for that. My name is Achika Biel, and I will be your moderator for this session today. Welcome to this important session where we will be discussing the challenges and opportunities in employment in the government and non-governmental sectors, the NGOs and the UN. I hope you will find today's discussion as informative and productive, and thank you again for joining us. So let's dive in. As we all know, employment is a relationship between two parties, an individual and an entity, where one exchanges labor for monetary compensation, or better yet, you work and you get paid. To employ someone is to pay them to work. An employer provides employment to employees, and employment can also refer to the act of employing people. The International Labour Organization, ILO, defined unemployment as the people who are out of work and want a job. It is a situation where tertiary institutions graduates do not get jobs after going through the academic ladder successfully. And one of the major causes of this is the mismatch between the aspirations of graduates and the employment opportunities available to them. The problem of unemployment in South Sudan is a national issue that should be handled with care. And among known factors and causes of youth unemployment are poor performance of a country's economy, lack of privatization, lack of budgetary allocation to productive sectors, high population of youth, lack of capital, adequate and quality training, low wages and income for youth, cultural factors hindering women, and so forth. The fear of becoming unemployed may impact and lower a young person's subjective well-being, injure self-esteem, and foster feelings of helplessness. When we look at South Sudan's labor force, women are more affected by the lack of representation in the workforce. There are huge discrepancies between men and women, with men holding most of the positions that are available. So recently, we have heard of many attacks happening in different states regarding the issues of employment. In April 24th, 2021, youths in Ajongtok in the eastern part of Ruweng administrative area allegedly assaulted an IRC compound. The youth claimed overt discrimination against the locals in the hiring process. In April, a UN employee was attacked in Eastern Equatorial State. This issue is becoming a major concern for us. And today, we would like to hear from our experts here and the government representatives on how we can work together as South Sudanese. So before we start our discussion, I would like to briefly introduce our great panelists here. And I will start with Professor Dr. Julia A. Duan. She is currently the Undersecretary of Public Service and Human Resource Development. She is a professor of educational leadership and policy studies and a former vice chancellor of Dr. John Garang Memorial University of Science and Technology. Dr. Duan is the CEO and founder of Gender Equity and Women Leadership Program, an organization that empowers women in all fields of studies in South Sudan. She was formerly the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and a chairperson of Recruitment and Selection Board in the Ministry of Labor, Public Service and Human Resource Development in the government of South Sudan. She was a member of South Sudan National Vision 2040, and she was a research associate at Vincent and Lynn Ostrom Workshop in Political Theory and Policy Analysis at Indiana University. She was a Fulbright scholar at Makerere University, Kampala, Uganda, and she taught in primary and secondary schools in Sudan and the United States. Dr. Julia, welcome. We are very pleased to have you here. Our second panelist is Honorable Mary Hilary Wani. Ms. Honorable Mary has a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Juba University. She holds a Master of Science in Development Planning from University of Khartoum, and she is currently the Undersecretary at the Ministry of Labor. And Ms. Honorable Mary has worked with the government of South Sudan, the UNDP, WFP, UN OCHA, IRC, and GTZ. Honorable Mary, we are glad to have you here today. Our third panelist is Ms. Jocelyn. Ms. Jocelyn Itoron holds a bachelor's in law and a master's in governance, peace, and security studies, both from Kenya. She has 7 years of experience in the protection and peace building fields and has worked with different organizations in South Sudan, Bangladesh, and Iraq. She is currently with the UN Migration as a Durable Solution Officer based in Baghdad. Ms. Jocelyn, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Our fourth panelist is Ms. Viola Riag. Ms. Viola is a social scientist and gender activist from South Sudan. She currently is a UNFPA gender analyst based in Juba, South Sudan. She has over 8 years experience in peace building, conflict resolution, transformation, and gender equality. Ms. Riak is a champion for prevention and response to gender-based violence, including child marriage in South Sudan. She is a strong advocate on issues of sexual reproductive health services, including the rights to access family planning. Ms. Riak holds a Master of Social Sciences in Social Development from the University of Cape Town and a Bachelor of Arts in Community Development from Daystar University. Welcome, Viola. And our last panelist is Ms. Doris Pony. She's a South Sudanese advocate of the High Court of Kenya and South Sudan. She has worked both in the private sector and under 2 law firms and later joined the UN. She currently is still with the UN. It has, in her words, it has been both rewarding and challenging to serve her community through the humanitarian sector. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. And I will start now with our discussion. And we'll start with Honorable Professor Dr. Julia. The first question to you here is, kindly tell us about the mandate of the Ministry of Public Service and Human Resource Development.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be with all talented young women trying their best, to improve situation in South Sudan in all fields. So I really feel honored and privileged to be here. I have been a seasonal migrant from government to academia to civil society back in the government. So my migration has widened my background to see the challenges that are facing all the communities and especially the young people in academia. The mandate of public service, some public service, labor and public service were one ministry. But with the agreement, they were split into 2, where now public service and human resource development is a ministry, and then Ministry of Labor as a sister ministry. The mandate is to build and manage the capacity of the Republic of South Sudan public service for effective and efficient delivery. Also, it also give regulations and check on the public private sector in terms of employment. So now those 2 ministries, the employment in the private sector now fall under the Ministry of Labor. And then the public sector now is under us as public service and human resource development. Ministry of Public Service, as you go across the world, is the major or the mother of all other ministries. So being in public service, and I have been here before and went out and came back, you can see a lot of challenges that are really facing the Ministry of Public Service and Human Resource Development. So the mandate is really to cater for the government of South Sudan as a whole. From the national level to subnational level, the capacity of the civil servants is catered by Ministry of Public Service and Human Resource Development. I think I will stop here as we will get into more details later, but you should put on your head public service is, I say it is an umbrella that really cover the Republic of South Sudan in terms of employment and service delivery to the people of South Sudan. I will stop here.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Professor Dr. Julia. We would move on to Ms. Jocelyn Kurum as we wait for Honorable Mary to join us. And Jocelyn, the question here for you is, having worked in the non-governmental sector in South Sudan, what are your views about the recruitment process, and do you think there is fairness? Why and why not?
Thank you so much, Achik, for the question. This question is actually, this discussion is something close to my heart. I've been really a proponent of fairness recruitment in South Sudan, especially in the NGO and the UN sector. So without any further ado, I think I will just go ahead and answer your question. To some extent, there's some level of fairness during recruitment. The fact that most jobs are advertised and then followed by shortlisting and interviews, that already shows that there's some rules and regulations that are being followed. However, there are also scenarios of these procedures, of this process being done just for formality. For example, an insider might say that the position is already occupied and it's just paperwork completion. It is also common today. Most people rely on connection from friends and relatives who work in those particular NGOs. Hence, the connection is very common today. Someone once asked me when I told him that I've applied for a job in a certain NGO in South Sudan, and he asked me, do you know anyone in the HR or in the system? And I said no. Then he's like, okay, then I think it's very useless for you to apply for this position, because nowadays everything is about connection, and there's a lot of tribalism, there's a lot of nepotism when it comes to recruitment process in South Sudan. And it's something that is a common knowledge also in South Sudan for those who have worked in the NGO sector for a long time, that there are certain NGOs that are occupied by certain tribes in South Sudan, and it's really a reality, and it's high time we call a spade. And for us to be able to tackle this issue, then we need to accept that there is a problem, and discuss more on how to, to address this issue. So how do we explain some organization purely having staff from one tribe? Is it competency or unfair practice being promoted indirectly using the principle of diversity? Because this is one argument that is being thrown, that, we have the principle of diversity, but what is diversity at the end of the day if we're only having one community dominating some sector or some NGOs? Then it beats the logic, because diversity means that we are including people from different backgrounds, from different cultures and different ethnicity. So from my experience, and also getting many testimonies and stories from my colleagues, I would say that there's a lot of malpractices in the recruitment process in South Sudan, and really something needs to be done. I've worked also as a supervisor in South Sudan before, so I have been involved in the recruitment process, and sometimes you'll find that not all CVs are being submitted. People will give CV physically, but at the end of the day, there are some that are being hidden by the HR personnel, or sometimes even you go through the recruitment process, you go through the interview process, and at the job offer level phase, then you find out that someone else has been given that position. So I think it's rightly to say that it's really unfair, but totally there are also some aspect of it that is a bit fair, because some of us were able to get jobs also through the right process. But the majority of South Sudanese are crying. Majority of South Sudanese are raising these concerns. And it seems like this is not something that just is happening right now. It has been an issue for a long time. And it's across all states. It's not only one state that is raising this issue. 2 to 3 years ago, we had Maban, we had Bentiu, now we have Ajontok. Torit has joined in, and also the Western Equatoria also has sent some of their, their valid, grievances to the NGOs and the UN. So I think this is a topic that needs to be addressed with care. And despite the fact that we have to follow the principles of diversity, fairness, and all that, we also have to make sure that there's rules that are really, there's investigations in with regards to how these processes are being undertaken. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Jocelyn, for taking us through that. And I totally echo your sentiments on that. This is a very sensitive topic that we need to unpack with care and have these difficult conversations. And that's why we are here today. So we will still continue just on following up on the non-governmental sectors before we circle back to the government. And I will go to Ms. Viola, please kindly talk to us and explain why very few women, in your opinion, are employed in both the public and the non-governmental sector in South Sudan.
Thank you very much, Achik, for that question. It is true that when we compare women who are employed in South Sudan versus the men who are employed, we have seen that the number of women is very low. And this is based on a number of factors. And to start with is that we have a gender gap in the employment sector. And I have seen personally women who want to work and have all the qualifications and the experience needed, but it's harder for them to find job as compared to their male counterpart. Now, there are various reasons. One is the freedom to work is limited. Is it by choice? Is it in a favorable conditions? Are there working conditions that are dignified? Are they safe? Are they fair? And so these are some of the things that really limit the number of women to be employed in South Sudan. Other reasons are, who do we put as our referee as women when we're looking for a job? There's that section where it says list 3 or 4 references. Who do we give as our references? And this is particularly very important because who you put there should be someone who can speak very highly of you, someone who is knowledgeable of your career or your previous experience, things that you have done in relation to that job that you have applied for. So I think we need to be very careful when we put references. Let's just not put our friends or our neighbors. That doesn't work. We need to have someone who's going to have a say when they are asked to say a word for us. Now, other reasons that contribute to the fact that women are less in the employment sector are issues like unequal gender roles. Women spend a lot of time doing unpaid work like cleaning, cooking, taking care of the children and elderly. This time where men are there busy working in a professional job and are paid and are earning a lot of money. So unequal gender roles contributes to these factors. Now, other issues, and probably I will end with this, are that some women are being prevented by their spouses to actually go out there and work. This could be as a result of the man is very insecure, doesn't want the woman to go out there and work. One, maybe because the environment of which that woman is going to work is not safe, or the man just wants the woman just to be kept in the household doing household work and not really working for a paid job. So these are just some few things that I can highlight. There are many other issues that contribute to the low employment of women, but I just wanted to highlight those few. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Viola, for that. And it's very unfortunate that women still experience that, being prevented from pursuing their careers because of a man's desires to keep her in the house or his own securities. So it's very unfortunate. We will circle back to you with additional questions. For now, I would like to welcome Honorable Mary Pitia. She is back with us here, and I will circle back as well to her. So for now, I will have Ms. Doris Pony. And your question is a three-part question in which I will ask you the first part. Is employment part of human rights? Ms. Doris, we can't hear you.
Sorry, my bad. Yes, I think yes, employment is identified as part of human rights, both in national and international law. Under our constitution, the Transitional Constitution of South Sudan, 2011, Article 14, all persons are equal before the law, and everyone deserves equal treatment and equal protection, regardless of sex, gender, religious background, political affiliation, and all of that. So we are equal under the law. Number two, our constitution furthermore grants women the right to seek employment for equal pay and equal work. That is under Article 16 of our constitution. And so the same is reiterated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Therefore, based on that, I do agree that employment is a human right. However, it's contingent upon one's qualification. It is not an inherent right, such as a right to life or right to access to basic needs like food and clothing. So as much as it's a human right, it's contingent upon our qualifications. Over to you, Achek.
Thank you, Doris. And you did mention something very important and you brought it up, which is discrimination, which will be the second part of your question. So what happens when there is discrimination based on race during the recruitment process?
Well, okay. First of all, it's really hard to establish or to identify discrimination during the recruitment process. You need evidence to do that. So when there is discrimination during the recruitment process, the potential candidate needs to get adequate evidence to prove that indeed there was discrimination during the recruitment. So I have had examples from colleagues here in South Sudan who have gone through the recruitment process and they received an offer letter, but later on, upon going to sign the offer letter, they're told that no, this post is no longer available, or they're given an excuse or one reason or another. So based on such, if you experience such a scenario, you can report to the HR within the organization, and where you don't get a remedy within the organization, one is eligible to seek legal recourse within the Ministry of Labor or the Ministry of Public Service and Human Resource. So such cases are there, but one needs to be prepared with the evidence to prove that indeed there was discrimination in the recruitment process. And one may need to also prove that there is a pattern of discrimination within that particular organization. And such cases are quite numerous in South Sudan, and it may lead to mistrust between employees and employers, and subsequently it tarnishes the image of the organization. As such, we need to try and rectify, and that's why I'm happy we are having this conversation today.
Right. Thank you so much, Doris. And you kind of answered the part 3 of your question on the steps that an individual who feels discriminated should take. So thank you so much for that. We will now have Ms. Honorable Mary talk to us, and we'll steer away from the NGO world. We are going back to the government. So Honorable Mary, talk to us. What is the mandate of the Ministry of Labor and what are some of the major achievements?
The main mandate of the Ministry of Labor is to formulate, review, and implement policies in labor and industrial relations, the laws, and the regulations. Its function also is to regulate the private sector, the labor market as a whole, and the private sector in particular, including the NGOs sector. We are supposed to conduct inspections in the workplaces, ensure that the environment in the workplace is okay, that there is health and safety taken care of in the workplace, and also the relationship between the workers and the employers. So this is mainly the mandate of the Minister of Labor, and also to regulate the aliens that are coming to work in the country, as well as ensuring that fair recruitment processes are followed. This I can say is the main mandate of the Minister of Labor. We have so far been able to have the labor law, which was enacted way back in 2017. We have not developed the regulations yet. We are engaging a consultant to develop for us the labor regulations, which will detail the processes. Yeah, we also have the mandate of, let's say, mediating between the disputes that may arise between the employers and the workers, as well as deciding on the minimum wage, usually in consultation with our social partners, that is the Workers' Association and the Employers' Association as well. We have to do it in consultation and then decide on the minimum wage. Currently, we are trying to establish, as indicated in the Labor Act, the Labor Advisory Council. We are hoping it will be in place this year with the support from the ILO. We have so far also worked out the guidelines for recruitment in the NGOs. We have drafted one for the oil companies. It is not yet published. So we are hoping that this one also will come into effect. And we are actually seeking for a way to give all the South Sudanese a fair opportunity for all the jobs that are in the country. We also do, we have oversight over the vocational training centers that are in the country, as well as the ones that are directly managed by the government. So in that respect, we work also on the curriculum and we give the certification. So far, this is what I can say the Ministry of Labor is doing, and we hope to improve on all those. We recognize the fact that we have a lot of youth in the country, and they need skills which will enable them then to contribute in developing the economy of the country and contributing to nation building. This is what we are currently trying to do with our partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mary. We will circle back to you on the regulations and how the Ministry of Labor regulates employment in South Sudan. So get ready for us. We will be back with you. This moment, we will go back to Dr. Julia. And Dr. Julia, take us through this discussion. What is the job recruitment process for the public sector?
Thank you. I think you are breaking up. Can you repeat the question again?
Yes. So talk to us about what is the job recruitment process for the public sector?
You know, Ministry of Public Service has a recruitment board as a directorate. And before I left the government and went back to academia, I was the chair of the recruitment board. And recruitment board was came out from the ministerial order at that time when Madame Aoud was the minister of Labor and Public Service and Human Resource Development. And as an undersecretary of the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, she thought that it will be shared, rotation of the undersecretaries to lead the recruitment board so that everybody is involved. We developed the guidelines for recruitment, which I left, and up to today, they have not passed them. But when we were recruiting, we were using the international practice of recruitment. You advertise the job. First of all, the ministry agency in charge of employment will come to public service, to the recruitment board. And the recruitment board will check their nominal role, whether that position is open or already filled in by somebody else. When it is find out the vacancy is there, then we ask the ministry concerned or agency concerned now to advertise the position. And we ask them to collect all the applications. Whatever application they get, they have to receive it. Then the recruitment board will come and sit down. There are about 7 members who sit in the recruitment board at that time. Minister of Public Service is the chair, recruitment board is the chair, and then we have finance will come in there, and other agencies who are also part of the government will sit in there. We will shortlist with openness to see that what kind of applications are there. We will shortlist it, and then now we go to the second, or which is the third procedure of now interviewing those who have been shortlisted. They come in, and we have 2 type of approach. One is a written method, so that we make sure that you really support your documents. We give them certain questions and let them answer those questions. When you pass that one, then now you go to the oral interview, and also to make sure that the documents you have given us really tell us who you are. Once they have passed that stage, and they are now, we will list the first 3 from that job which they have applied. And then we'll come and sit down again and say, okay, we now pick which one really qualified for the position. After they are recruited, they have passed their interview. Now we do the induction. They will come, those who have already had been who have succeeded in interview will come for induction. Induction is very important because most of our people, sometimes they don't know their rights. You go in the job, and as my young daughter was talking about discrimination, and also there's so many other things there, where they ask young people, especially when you are a woman, you have to offer this before you get that job. So we now they go for 2 days induction, where they know their rights and they also know what is expected out of them. The job description also, we share with them, this is what you are going to do. And then from there now, they will go for provision appointment, which is 3 months to observe whether you will be able to do the job. When you succeed, now you have the permanent appointment will come in. It is a long process, and we thought that it helps to get real skills into the government. Because the government is being accused all the time. It is from who you know, not what you know. But the recruitment board will look at what you know, not who you are. You are. So that recruitment board is a very strategic for employment of these really marketable skills that can come in, and especially for women. You know, you have to build up yourself to have those skills that you will be able to compete in the job. If you have succeeded in the interview and you have 2 men and have women, we will say, okay, we will go for a lady because we are already a minority. So you have 10 points that are added to your points so that you can be able to be appointed. So for me, recruitment board is very crucial. Some of the regulations and policies were the previous policies of the regional government. They have a 1994 one, and then later it was revised through 20. So these regulations are there. It's a matter of updating them, and then people can be able to use them to be able really to minimize all the corruption. Corruption is not only on money. Corruption is also when you bring your sister, you bring your spouse, or you bring a relative or your child in a position that should have been advertised. So we do trust that it is not only on money, but it is also on who should take the job in the government. You know, government, and it is always a challenge for our people. Everybody wants to see their face in there. Like what you have said earlier, that one ethnic group will line up in that ministry without other people. That is not a good way of putting a mirror out and you say this is South Sudan where we all see our faces. And particularly the women, the young people, the minorities group, which we have also in South Sudan. You have the Makaraka, is a small in Western Equatoria. You have the Brun in Upper Nile, you know, it's very small. You have the Kachipo in Jonglei, far up there, the cliff of borders of Ethiopia. They don't even know whether they are in Ethiopia or in South Sudan. So we need, you know, to see our faces in the mirror of the government. And I think recruitment board is very crucial to follow those procedures so that nobody is accused of nepotism and things like that. And I can tell you the time I spent as the chair of recruitment board. Mary was one of my was one of the people I recruited as a senior staff, you know, junior staff, and then she went through senior. Now she's sitting on the table with me. So I'm really, I say I'm proud to see those kind of young people succeeding and coming up. Those are the skills we want. We don't want women also to be begging. I really hate when they say that, well, we just gave you. And I say, no, it is our head here that brought us here, nothing else. And that's what I really want the young ladies to say. Equip yourself with marketable skills and come and compete, and you will be able to make it. So I will stop there, because also the vision of the ministry is a responsive, well-managed, accountable public service. And also the logo service without fear and favor. So these are strong keys, words that can keep public service open to all of us, so that we don't agree that I was not a part of it and I have been discrimination. I think we need to fight that as people of South Sudan. I think I will stop here and we can go on for more questions later if you wish. We'll stop there because we are many and I think your time may not allow all of us to talk our heads off, but we will have to stick to the question. Thank you very much.
Yes, Dr. Julia, thank you so much for enlightening us and for educating us, because quite honestly, I did not know there was a recruitment process in the public sector. So, and the fact that the Recruitment Board is taking the initiative to address inclusion of the minority tribes, I think that is a very, very good discussion that you provided to us. So we will circle back to you with additional questions. And for now, we will go to Ms. Honorable Mary Hillary. And you initially talked about the mandate of the Ministry of Labor as regulating the labor market, both in the public sector and the private sector. So talk to us now. How does the Ministry of Labor regulate employment in South Sudan?
Thank you very much. It is clearly stated in the labor law, the fundamental rights at workplace. And these include non-discrimination, sexual harassment, equal remuneration for work of equal value, freedom of association, prohibition of forced labor, illegal movement of employees, minimum working age, worst forms of child labor, right to privacy, disputes regarding fundamental rights at work. So when it comes to employment, usually we would like to see that nationals of South Sudanese are employed in South Sudan. We do acknowledge that because of the conflict that has been, the struggle that was in the country, we are somehow under privileged. Some of our people maybe did not have the opportunity of getting skills in certain areas. So we need to complement that part with experts or aliens who can come now and fill in the gap that we are having as South Sudan. But looking back from the time we had the CPA and our nationals having opportunity to go and study, we have South Sudanese who have graduated from different fields and they have the competence to work in the country. If you look usually in the UN or in the NGO sector, they will say that the South Sudanese, they lack the competence, but that is not true. Maybe we can say that we do not have enough South Sudanese who graduated in the natural sciences, like maybe in the field of medicine or engineering. We may say that we don't have enough South Sudanese in that field and we need to complement them with foreigners, or maybe in the specialized different industries that are coming up in the country. But if you look at the social sciences, like to do with accounting or financial management and management in general, we do have a lot of South Sudanese who could be employed and who are really competent and they have the experience to serve well in this area. As Ministry of Labor, usually when an organization identifies an area where they need to recruit, they will prepare their advertisement and bring it to be approved by the Ministry of Labor. But they bring to us only the adverts for the national positions. These usually we approve, and it is posted either online or in the boards for people to, job seekers to go and apply. What is lacking is that we do not get, once we approve the advertisement, we do not get the feedback as to who has been the identified candidate. In the guidelines that we issued, it is clearly stated that an advert must be posted for at least 2 weeks to give opportunity, whether in the newspaper, in the radio, to give opportunity for all job seekers to get access to the adverts and then apply, those who are competent or who see that they are qualified enough to compete for that position. Now, we do not get the feedback once they do the shortlisting and then maybe the interviews. We do not get the communication back as to who has been identified as the successful candidate and the person who will be employed into that organization. We have, however, been asking to get the feedback once we approve the advertisement. We have followed up with a circular, but we have not been successful in that. We still need to exert more efforts so that we get the feedback as to whether the person who has been given the position actually applied for that position. We have been hearing a lot of stories, complaints from people that sometimes in the NGO, they will take in somebody who is an insider who was maybe on a temporary position, and then that person will be given the permanent position in the organization. So in our guidelines, we have been very clear on the recruitment guidelines that there must be a panel, independent panel for doing the shortlisting, and another panel for doing the interviews. You cannot have the same people shortlisting and then the same people interviewing. On the other hand, somebody who has not applied, who may in some way be related to people who are working in that organization, should not just be taken in like that at the expense of the people who actually applied and who are competent and who could have had the opportunity of getting employed. It is very difficult to regulate this area. We have insisted that as much as the organizations would like the people to apply online, they should also take hard copies, those who will bring the hard copies of their application to that institution. There were issues, of some application, even if they bring the hard copy. Some people who have interest working in that organization will try to hide, those applications, and they will not reach the table so that they can now be considered for competition. And then we said one way of trying to mitigate this problem is we propose that at least there must be a box locked and it should be opened by the panel and not an individual person opening it because of personal interest. We have these complaints like that in one. Are you trying to communicate something? Are you trying to communicate? No, I can't. You can't hear us, hear me.
Ms. Doris, we are not able to hear you. Are you able to send us a message? Ms. Honorable Mary, please go on.
Yeah. Okay, fine. We have complaints that, like, you will find in one organization only one tribe, from the senior management up to the lowest employee. It will be one tribe in that. And in our guidelines, we try to address those issues by putting in that that maybe the HR who is an international staff who has no relation, who do not know, maybe our tribes here would be sitting in that panel to ensure that people are employed on merit and not because of their affiliation to some of the employees maybe. So another thing that we have also done to address the complaints that are coming to us from the job seekers is that together with the UNDP, we are putting up a portal, employment portal, where they would be able to access internet. We put computers and then connect it to internet, and all job seekers would be able to access, to browse and find the jobs they would like to apply, and then they can be able to apply online. We started trying to put those portal in place. It will be here in Juba in the MTC. The place is already ready. They are just setting up the computers and then connecting it to internet. So soon, maybe before the end of this month, it will be operational. We'll have one also in Torit, another one in Yambio, another one in Rumbek and Bor. So initially we are starting with these 5 states, and then hopefully we'll be able to expand to the other states given the finances. So these are some of the things that we are doing. And one thing is also to educate, the job seekers and the workers of South Sudan on the Labor Act. Most people are ignorant. They do not know what are the provisions in the Labor Act, and we need to create awareness. Sometimes back in 2019, we have a few radio talk show to educate the populace, so get questions from the people and enlighten them on what is contained in the Labor Act. But given the situation in South Sudan, we are limited in resources and access. We cannot have like coordination meetings with our state counterparts who are actually directly dealing with workers in the states. So yeah, we have some challenges which we hope we'll be able to overcome gradually. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mary. You dive into your second part of your question, which would be on the how the ministry ensures fairness in the NGOs and the UN recruitment process. We also have a follow-up question on that, which I think you can answer once you give us your, discuss with us on how the ministry ensures fairness in the NGOs and the UN recruitment.
Can you come back again on that?
The second part of your question is, how does the ministry ensure fairness in the NGOs and the UN recruitment? And you kind of touched on it, so if you could, take us.
Okay.
Honorable Mary, unmute your mic.
Yeah, in the UN, we are not really very much engaged with them, and we are not really, although for the nationals who are employed, they have to apply. Those who are holding non-UN permanent positions, I think they have to apply the labor laws of the country. But we are not very much involved in the UN. But for the bulk of the NGOs, we are trying to streamline all those issues. And that is why we came up with this recruitment guidelines for the NGOs. I think a small booklet where we give them the guidelines. And indeed, actually, the state governments were pushing to be sitting in the panels. On the other hand, the NGOs were complaining that if the state officials sit in their panels, they will also try to bring in their own people. As Ministry of Labor, we are also people and we have different interests. They will deviate from what the law is saying and try to push the organization to employ people of their interest as well. So we finally said, okay, they will not sit in the panel, but we must have the access to review the recruitment files, right from the long listing to the short listing to the shortlisted candidate, and finally the recommended, the successful candidate to be recruited. So these files should be ready, and the labor authorities should be able to inspect and review these files in case of any complaint so that we'll ensure that truly the people who are employed are people who are competent. Another thing is that there are some positions, within the, most of the NGOs, they have their headquarters here in Juba, and would not allow them to carry drivers, cleaners, all the way from Juba to those other areas. So it is for the people in the local area, to occupy the positions of, let's say, cleaners, security guards, drivers. And it has come up also, they need to have community mobilizers from the people, rather than bringing somebody to mobilize the community who will need another person to interpret. So community mobilizers should also be from the communities, from where the project is, or where that organization is operating. So these are some of the things we put in place to regulate that. In the private sector, most of the companies that are here, besides maybe the oil companies, the other companies that are operating here are small companies. Maybe they bring in their family members to be working. They employ maybe 1 or 2 South Sudanese, but most of them are not really big employers. We have the security companies, private security companies that are giving security services, and these are also, they are a big employer. Some of them, like WS Inside, employing over 4,000 South Sudanese. So also the same thing applies, that you recruit the guards from the locality. You don't carry transport guards from another state to another state. So these are positions that should really benefit the people on the ground. There is a misunderstanding concerning what we have included in the Labor Act, that all employees in the private sector, in the companies or the NGOs, 80% of them should be at least national South Sudanese at all levels, from the lower level up to the senior management level. At least 80% should be from South Sudanese. This has also been wrongly interpreted in some of the states, and it is the youth are rising up and raising their complaints that people are taken from other areas to their state. But for the professional and technical positions, when we say 80%, we mean 80% should be South Sudanese from any state in South Sudan. They have the right to work within the country in any state, depending on their competence and following the fair recruitment process. This is something that we want also to make clear, that our youth in the different states, they should understand that it is not all the positions that should be. In case they lack the competence, the position can be advertised within the state, but if they cannot get somebody competent for that position, then other South Sudanese from other states should have the priority. So this is what we are trying to communicate to all the South Sudanese, that 80% doesn't mean people from the locality, but any national South Sudanese have the right from any state to work in any other state, depending on their competence. So we are struggling with these issues, and I hope the time will come when we'll understand our laws clearly. Thank you. I think I'll end here.
Yes, Honorable Mary, thank you so much for that, and for the first step to restoring faith, labor and at the ministry, and to see what they are doing for our youth. So this is just a follow-up question to your first section. Is there anybody who is set up to monitor the implementation of some of the ministry's policies that you did mention here? Honorable Mary?
Yeah. We don't have a system which is in place now to monitor, but we are trying to have build a website where we'll have everything recorded in it, what to do with labor. Currently, if you ask me how many graduates we have in any of the fields, of study in South Sudan, I will not be able to tell you. How many people are employed in South Sudan, that information I do not have also. But we are making efforts to get the data in place. Currently, we are doing something called labor market assessment, where we develop a format, we fill in the details concerning the workers in the different workplaces, whether companies or NGOs. We have been receiving a lot of resistance. We started the process last year in August. It's still rolling on. We have got some information, but not yet complete. So I think by the end of this process, the labor market assessment, we'll be able to tell how many South Sudanese are working, or aliens, all the people working in South Sudan, whether nationals or from other nations. What are their areas, they are working in which area, what are the levels, their payment. We are trying to get all this data so that when we analyze it, it will be able to inform policy decision in concerning labor. So we are struggling. Our budget is very limited, but we have engaged a lot of youth who are also seeking jobs to do the work for us, and we just pay them some little allowance, and we hope by the end of this process we'll be able to get some check. The labor law is saying 80% should be nationals. We'll be able to know in this company or NGO what is the percentage of the nationals there compared to the international staff. So this is what we are working on, and I hope we'll be able to reach somewhere. And through this, we also in the area of vocational training, we have those vocational trainings that are under the government and those that are privately run or faith-based. We are developing a data also system where we'll have all the people trained from different vocational training centers, giving us the area, the skill they have, they got from that training, and we'll be able to know in numbers. So I think in the future, if we are asked whether you have, and the graduates also, we hope to put them and record their number and their area of specialization, so that if I'm asked, I'll be able to say, yes, we have this many graduates who are seeking for work in this, specialized in this area. So nobody will come and tell me that, oh, you don't have qualified people. Even the women, those who have, taken the effort to train themselves and gain some skill, will be able to say, yeah, these are the women who can take the 35%, They are skilled and they are competent, and they can do the same work that their male counterparts are doing. So we are working on that. Okay.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mary. We have some questions from our audience. We are following the discussion, and I will circle back with those questions to you, Honorable Mary and Dr. Julia. For now, let's move to Jocelyn. Ms. Jocelyn, many youths are unemployed in South Sudan. Why do you think this is happening? And is this due to qualification or language barrier?
Thank you so much, Achik. Unemployment of many youth in South Sudan can be pegged on multiple factors, not only one specific factor. To a larger extent, most youth have inadequate skills or qualification following the long decades of war and inadequate development and economic recovery plans in the country. So we lack a lot of youth with both skilled and semi-skilled technicalities. South Sudan poor economic performance coupled with lack of privatization policies. The private sector in most countries provide an avenue for government or employment. I mean, those who lack employment opportunities in the private, in the NGO and the government, they're able to get this employment in the private sector. So the youth form a very big population in South Sudan, yet the available opportunities are scarce and can't meet all the youth employment needs, which is not equitable with the current high number of the youth. The youth also lack adequate and quality training skills, which prepare them for potential employment at various levels. Sadly, the majority of the youth have participated in the war, and with limited opportunity to education and training opportunities, leaving them vulnerable in terms of technical and professional skills match. Cultural factors also hinders female access to equal opportunities like education and training. So we have some cultures that do not allow maybe women or girls to go to education, or also to be able to acquire certain skills. So it leaves these women, girls and women, really vulnerable, because they are not able to get certain jobs due to the lack of skills. The absence of meaningful skills has disengaged many youth from meaningful, productive avenues. And if you look at also, but last and not least, also the language barrier. Unfortunately, this shouldn't be an issue of language being a hindering factor, when it comes to job employment opportunities or livelihood opportunities. But this is a sad scenario in South Sudan. We have quite a number of educated, actually very brilliant youth in South Sudan that we term them as Arabic pattern. Those are people who maybe got their education in Khartoum, in the north, in Sudan. So these are people that, because most of the employment, if you look at the job adverts that we have, the requirements could be that you have to know how to speak English. It's a mandatory for you to be able to communicate with your supervisors and any other colleagues at the workplace. It is really funny, because I've worked in other countries as well, and from my experience working in Bangladesh and also Iraq, you see that majority, there are a very significant number of employees who actually can't speak English, but they are employed, because these people also, they have the skills, they know the technical know-how, or how to perform, the duties at workplace, but it's only that they don't know English. But that does not hinder them from getting these job opportunities, because these are employees that interact with the local community. These are people that go to the refugee camps, to the IDP camps, to interact with the displaced population. So they know the language. They're able to speak to these people. So it's really not something that is a mandatory for you to have to know how to speak English. It is an added advantage, because of course, communication when it comes to report writing and all that. So what I'm saying that in South Sudan, yes, language barrier has played a very big role. And as I mentioned earlier on, we have quite a big percentage of South Sudanese that have gone to school in Khartoum, and they are not able to get opportunities here in South Sudan, because most of the jobs with NGOs and the UN, you have to know how to speak English. So, and with regards to capacity, lack of capacity in for the youth, I think it's high time that we hold some of these NGOs and UN accountable, because one of the ultimate goal of the NGOs is to build the capacity of the locals. So it is really absurd to hear there are several NGOs that have worked in South Sudan for decades in certain area, like it could be 3 decades, 30 years, and you come back and say that there are no people with capacity in that community, then you yourself as an NGO have failed, because you are supposed to make sure that these interventions are sustainable, that we are not, the UN or the NGOs are not going to be here forever. So we have to make sure that we impact some of these capacity to the local community. There are a lot of posts, like employment opportunity, that don't really need the technical know-how. We have a lot of case workers. You don't need to have someone who knows rocket science to do that, you know, because we always have the assumption that the local community are completely ignorant of what is happening in their society. We can give an example of protection. You always have this perception that these people don't know what protection is, but these are people that have protected their community since time immemorial. Child protection, even women protection. Women in the village they know there are different methods of how to protect themselves. The only thing that they lack, it's the resources, you know, in terms of capital to, you know, to the logistic part of it. But they do have some form of an understanding of the concept. So what I'm saying that we don't have to go for the local community have to be given volunteers or certain we just term them as beneficiaries. They should just sit and they are beneficiaries. They just get assistance or support. We have to build their capacity. You know, we have to make sure. So it's high time that we question these agencies working in South Sudan. You know, we have to look at. I mean, it's going to be something that will be challenging, but also we have to make sure that it's accountable to the government and the people of South Sudan in terms of even their reporting, looking at their indicator targets. Are they achieving it? Of course, there are a lot of reports that are flowery that goes to the donors, but actually at the grassroots level, nothing is really being done. So we have to make sure that these issues, we speak up about these issues and we make sure that we build the capacity of the locals. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jocelyn, for that. I think the issue of youth employment and unemployment is a very broad subject that needs to be unpacked and just taken very seriously. So we will steer a little bit away from the youth and we will look at the women. And for now, I will go to Ms. Viola Riak. Here's the question for you. So many people tend to believe that the women of South Sudan are not educated. And others feel that the place of a woman, or women rather, is in the kitchen. What can you tell the South Sudanese people regarding this issue? And please debunk this myth.
Okay, thank you very much, Achik, for that question. I will break the question into three parts. I will talk first on the education, the kitchen part you mentioned, and the last part of the question will be on the importance of women employment. Now, to go back to education, yes, South Sudanese women and girls are less likely to complete primary and secondary school education than boys. Maybe just to give statistics, according to the World Bank, it estimates that 7 girls per 10 boys attend primary schools, more than 10 primary schools in South Sudan. Now, if you see 7 versus 10, you can clearly see that it's more than a half of the boy population, which in my opinion is enough to fill the 35% representation in the government. So yes, we have less women and girls who are educated, but the few that are there are enough to fill more than 35% when it comes to employment opportunities. Now, the number, of course, get reduced when girls and boys go to secondary school for various reasons. One of it is being harmful traditional practices such as child marriage, teenage pregnancies, and other cultural norms. For example, parents prioritizing boys' education over girls. And this is in particular when resources become very limited. We have seen many parents opting for their boy child to get the opportunity as compared to their girl child. Now, on the second part, which is the kitchen bit, is very unfortunate, and I will say this is a misconception of cultural. This is a misconception of cultural practice in South Sudan. We all know kitchen is a very important place in our households, and it is a very important place for everyone that eats, and not just women and girls. So again, that's I will treat it like kitchen should be everyone place, and not just women and girls. We know very well in the world that the best chefs in the world, including here in South Sudan, are men. So that's just a lame excuse to discriminate and to continue the culture of patriarchy that discriminate women, especially when it comes where they can get earning and empowerment. Now, the last bit of it, where you ask about the importance of women in employment for a country, not just like South Sudan, but globally, is that equal employment opportunities for women actually benefits all. We have seen households where both men and a husband and a wife are working. They have more income. So there's a say that one hand cannot clap itself. So the more we join forces and we work towards the betterment of our family, the more we can actually afford some of these things that needs resources, such as school fees, medical health care, and other investments that families need to do. So yes, women employment is not just important for women themselves, but it's very, very crucial for household, for a society like South Sudan. And that will ensure that there's enough money. When you involve a woman actually in employment opportunities, she will ensure there's more money to be able to raise the children, like school fees and better healthcare. I think briefly that's what I will say on that particular question. Over to you, Echik.
Thank you so much, Ms. Viola, and for being a champion of women, saying that one hand cannot clap itself. Let us hear this loud and clear. So we will circle back to youth, and Ms. Doris, why do you think many youth are not being employed in South Sudan? And what advice can you give them?
Thank you, Achek, for that question. Most of the points have been highlighted by my colleague Jocelyn Itorong. However, there's some points that she left out. Other than the poor education background, the issue of youth unemployment is a complex issue, and there are a number of factors that are contributing towards youth unemployment. One of the major factors contributing towards youth unemployment in South Sudan, I would say, is a lack of motivation. You find that in the public sector, particularly in the government, because there are not enough jobs in the NGOs, you find that salaries are irregular. They are not only irregular, but they're bare minimum that cannot sustain life in Juba at the moment. So the lack of motivation is one of the factors contributing towards that. And also there are no opportunities for growth, career growth within most of these sectors. Both public and private sector do not offer youth opportunities for growth. I have worked in the UN sector for about, in the NGO sector for now 3.8 years. And you find that it's very hard for the youth to climb up the ladder. Most of the seniors or people who hold high positions, they tend to sit in those positions and hold it until retirement. So how are the youth going to get opportunities if other people do not vacate or if they don't create jobs for us? So that is one of the factors that are contributing towards youth unemployment. Another factor is the big elephant in the room is nepotism and corruption in the employment sector. It's sad to see that we have taken tribalism beyond politics, and now we brought it into the employment sector. As Honorable Mary rightly mentioned, in the NGO Act, 80%, not less than 80% should be reserved for national staff. Nationals means all South Sudanese, regardless of the tribe. So whether I am tribe A or tribe B, I can work in any part of this country. But you find that due to our tribalism now, we are unable to work in certain regions and we become targets. So we need to look at ourselves as brothers and sisters. We are one nation. We need to celebrate when one of us is working. It's better than nothing, you know. So nepotism and corruption is one of the factors that is promoting youth unemployment. And I think that, yes, as Jocelyn mentioned, we need to have more opportunities for youth to grow their capacity, both within the organizations and outside. And part B of your question is, what advice would I give to such youth? So number one, I would advise youth to get rid of the stereotype that you need connections to get jobs. I personally entered the job force market in South Sudan without any connections. My first job in Kenya, I also got it without connections. So it is possible to get employment without connections. All you need to do is ensure that for every job application, you tailor your CV. One weakness from the youth that I've seen is that we use the same CV to apply for numerous positions. You don't edit, you don't modify. So that can be a limiting factor because we are living in a competitive world where many youth are now highly educated. A degree nowadays doesn't hold much power as it used to be. So now they want youth to have masters and higher qualifications. But even with the higher qualifications, job opportunities are still limited. So it's a very competitive sector. So we need to ensure that we prepare ourselves adequately for that. Number two, I think the government should ensure that there are more learning institutions for youth, not only in Juba, but it should be decentralized towards other regions, because due to poverty and other factors, youth cannot afford to go outside the country. Many of them cannot even leave their states to come and study in Juba. So we need to ensure that there are more learning institutions for youth to grow in their capacity and to upgrade their education qualifications, because we said one of the problems is a lack of qualification. So how can they improve or acquire those skills? That is by creating more institutions for them to learn and acquire new skills. So lastly, I would also urge youth to find mentors. You can find mentors within your within your sphere of influence, within your family, within the academic arena. So find mentors who can guide you in your career and show you the way, because many have gone ahead of us, so we can learn a lot from them. That's all I can say for now. Thank you, Achek. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Doris, for that. And in addition to what Dr. Julia had said earlier, you're considered based on what supporting documents that you have and what you know, and not on the basis of who you know. So thank you for
Yes. Sorry, Achek. I just wanted to add another point that aside from formal employment, youth can also find opportunities by creating businesses. I know that one excuse we have is that lack of capital, but we need to, if you have a good idea, there are people who are willing to invest in good ideas. So apart from the formal employment, youth should also look at self-employment opportunities. And number two, I would also urge the government to also create a favorable environment for youth to invest by giving them maybe lower interest loans to be able to start up businesses, and that will be to eligible candidates only. So thank you. That's all I can say.
All right. Thank you so much, Doris, for that insightful discussion. So I hope we are taking notes, and to our audience, we are receiving your questions, and I hope you are getting the answers as we go along with our discussion. And let us know if you have any follow-up questions in addition to the ones that you submitted. So now we will circle back to Dr. Julia. And Dr. Julia, here's a question for you. Is it true that most jobs in the public sector are given to people without qualification, without advertisements based on tribal and family relations? Part two of the question, how is your ministry planning to rectify this issue? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I think that is a little harder question, or whether all the jobs in the government are given to unqualified individuals. I will divide the human resource, which might be working in the government, into three. We have the previous employees of Sudan government as a whole. Then the second one is the regional government at that time. And then the third one is the influx of those who have migrated out to other countries, plus those who were in the liberation movement fighting. So you have those three categories which are supposed to be working for government of South Sudan. During the liberation, SPLA has a program of civil servant, which they call it can or what? Mary, you help me out. Can. And can are South Sudanese who have gone out. Some of them has developed their skills, and they were stationed in the liberated areas. Now, when you come and say, now you have the government of South Sudan, which bring in all this background, you can have a really a mixed up system where people come from different backgrounds. Also, during the government of South Sudan, there were some of the soldiers who were relieved from the SPLA, and they were also to be included in the civil servants. Some of them were sent to the police units. Some of them were, sent in the local government to work with the state. So all this background has really, I would say, has slowed down the progress of civil servants to pick up as a system that you can easily follow. I remember when I was in high school and then to Juba University, the best civil servants were three countries. Sudan was one, Nigeria, and Ghana. And then later followed by Kenya. You could see the civil servant was very strong at that time. Now, are these jobs given to unqualified people? I'd say they are not given to unqualified people. As we before talked about nepotism and favoritism to certain relatives and bring them on board. Some may be young, some may be older, and the public service should have done was really to do what they call HR audit. HR audit, all these three categories, they could have, make a survey. Those who came from Sudan and regional government as one group, you can audit and see who are those people who have skills and those who don't have skills and those who really need to be developed. So when you have people with the skill, you don't need to train them much. They may need a touch-up of a month or 2 weeks to a month. Those are people who have already have the skill. You just need to give them orientation so that they will be able to do their job well. The middle one should have been those who have skills but have not had experience of what they are doing. They could have been taken. Those are people the HR now can give them to go for further studies so that they can shape up their skills. So that's where the government come in and give you scholarship to go. You spend a year or two. When you come back, you will come back with marketable skills or skills that can help you in your job. And then those who have not been really having very weak skills, you could say, okay, I'll send them for a year or two, so that they build up those skills and be able to come back. If we did that at the beginning, we would have not have the mix-up we have now. There are people with no skills. Some are unqualified. They cannot catch up with the system because the systems are changing every now and then. The fields are changing up and down. Like now you have ICT, which we didn't have before. So you need people to really to train them in computers so that can be able to work in the offices. So this is what we missed as a government from 2005 until 2012. So we remain with the redundant civil servants who don't go for training. We have workshops, which are really burning the people out. Workshops. And also these workshops, they are not, are not geared towards really what we'll get out of it. You send people to South Africa. You may end up, a daughter has been sent to South Africa instead of the civil servant who should have gone to South Africa or go to Kenya or go to to Uganda for workshops. So we train people who are not really part of the civil servant, and then we neglect the people which we should have trained. And that's what, to me, has contributed to the mix-up system and the challenging system we have. Yeah, being a civil servant, if you look back in the earliest, and maybe some of your dads, they were employed by the Sudan government and they were sent to other places, to be able to work. You sent to the north, or the northern Sudanese are sent to the south. That is part of experience also. But when we came in 2005, we created the subnational, which I state, and we didn't really nationalize the civil servants to become everyone should be part and parcel of civil servant. So if you take an example of the accountants, they should have been trained by the Minister of Finance, and then they are also transferred to the state so that they can be able to have. That one we didn't. The state is with own people, the train is own people, and we don't know who have taken which job and who have taken. So you have this really confused, I say it is a confused system until we sit down and do really the HR auditing so that we know where do we stand as a country and how we can improve the system. The issue of, I want to touch a little bit on this, why now we don't have a lot of young people coming into the civil service. I think Mary alluded to some before, but I'm looking at this idea. If you have a system, how you bring people to the system, how you maintain them, and how they can exit. So you see now you have the recruitment, and then you maintain the people, you take care of your employees, having good salaries so that they cannot migrate to greener posture. And then when they retired, then you can give them something reasonable. We can dignify them to give up the work. We haven't done that. So now we have all of us, even Julia is here, is still in the system since I was employed in 72. Yeah, I'm still here in the system. So if I'm still here, how will the young person get in? I should have been given my pension, which is reasonable for me to go and say, thank you very much, government of South Sudan, you have taken care of me and you are taking care of me and my exit. So if we exit more elderly people from the system, then now we will have a vacuum where now the young blood can come into. And then the one in the middle, now we push them to the upper level. We haven't done that. And that's why you see that everything is confused. People are saying people are unqualified. You still have a grandpa who is about 80 still sitting on the desk. We are not doing him a favor. To myself, we are even treating him bad. This is not the time for him to be sitting and listening to nonsense of the of the workplace. This is the time he should have gone rest, play with her or his granddaughters, and live another life which is much more dignified. And I think as we go along and we identified all these challenges, I think we will be able to come up with a system that caters for the people, a compassionate state that take care of the people who have worked in the system, and also who care for vulnerable groups, which like the young people, like the women who are lacking behind. They also have to have programs that build them so that they can be able to compete in the system. And also the minority group as well as vulnerable group, people with the disabilities should also be part and parcel of our civil servant. I think as we strategize ourselves and we are having all these hiccups up and down, maybe one day we will drink the water and the hiccups will go down, and then we will be able to have a smooth public servant that employ people who are qualified enough and also trained. You cannot be put in job and you stay there for 10 years without going anywhere. Do you think that you will know a new thing? And the system are changing. So those are the people you say sometimes they are unqualified because they have not been, refreshed into their workplace. I will not deny that there are some people who were brought in through window who are not qualified. I will not dispute that they are there, and until we make the auditing, of HR auditing, so that we know even the head count. Yeah, I don't know whether Mary knows all her stuff. I'm now new in the office, so I'm trying even to learn people's names. Some people whom I left there before, I still remember them, but there's new people who have come in. So I think we need, as the system build itself, then you are building a nation. If the ministries are working well, the subnationals are working well, the state, as well as you go down to the counties also are managing their affairs well, as providing services. It is the county and the state which are closer to the people, and the national should only be doing the programs and then also the policy that are implemented by the state and the counties and Payam like that. So this is my hope that one day we will pick it up. I can not only work in Juba, but I can go and retire in Akobo and help those people in Akobo how to run their affairs in the local government. So this is where we are. I think we have made a mistake as people of South Sudan, but it is a mistake we can also come together and fix it. Nobody is going to come somewhere else to fix what we have missed. We will learn, and we are very lucky as a nation because the time we got our independence, some of the African countries have not got that kind of talent we have in South Sudan. We have graduates, we have people with a PhD, we have doctors, we have so much wealth in social sciences. So we should have not repeat what other countries did before. We could have started with a good, with a good step, so that we can be able to have a stronger nation. So this is still haunting us, but let us pray that we will one day realize that it is time to hold and then try to fix the system so that it can serve all the people of South Sudan. I will stop there. I check. If you want, you can come and pick my brain. Whoever is in Juba, I know Jocelyn is around in Juba, all those. I think you are in Juba also. Viola, are you in Juba or abroad? My office is open. You can visit me, and you can give me ideas and also get ideas from me on how we can fix South Sudan for all of us. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julia, for that. I know your door is open and for extending that invitation. The good thing with today's world is that we are very connected with the internet. So be sure that I will pick you up on that offer that you just extended. Okay. Thank you so much for that elaborate discussion. We will go on to Honorable Mary. And Honorable, you have a vast experience in the UN and NGO sector. You've had that for a very long time. So can you kindly tell us about the recruitment process in the non-governmental sector? Is it true that certain people within the equatorial region are only employing their people while discriminating against others? And please share with us how the recruitment is done from the time a job is posted until the time a candidate is identified. And who is involved in the process? How does the organization ensure fairness in the recruitment process? And finally, what jobs are considered for the local people of a particular state? And do you have a classification for jobs? Honorable, this is a very loaded question, so we hand it over to you.
Okay, I'm not sure whether I got all the question. There was some interruption in the middle. I would like first to comment on the question that was addressed to Dr. Julia. Yes, there is what around that recruitment in the government is, through nepotism, people are brought in who are not qualified, but that is not the case all the time. Like you mentioned, Dr. Julia was one time the chair of the Recruitment Board that was housed within the Ministry of Labor, Public Service and Human Resource Development. And she was the chair of the interview that recruited me to the government. And I would say that I competed. The position was advertised. We applied, including others, and we were interviewed, and I competed, and I was recommended for that position through a panel. We had written interview and then oral. So I don't think in all cases recruitment in the government is through nepotism or people are just favored and given the position. That is not the case. We have been one ministry with public service, and it is in March last year that labor became an independent ministry, and we were lacking some directorates. And currently, I've been recruiting for those directorates, the Directorate of Administration and Finance, and the Directorate of Policy Planning and Budget. And we have advertised the positions, people applied, they were called for interviews and recommended to the position. And currently, the Ministry of Public Service and HRD will not confirm the appointment of any staff without bringing authenticated certificates. It is not just you bring the certificate, but it has to be authenticated. So this is a requirement in the ministry. So anybody without an authenticated certificates will not be employed. The appointment, maybe the agency that is getting the person to work may put the person there, but without confirmation from the Ministry of Public Service. This is a fact, and the ministry, there is reform going on. All the things that were mentioned by Dr. Julia, maybe they were there before, but they are not continuing. Reform is ongoing in the civil service. One thing also that is making the youth disinterested, actually, in joining the civil service is the fact that, the salaries we are giving are not really salaries. If you pay somebody with 3,000 SSP, something that you can spend for a meal in a day, not even enough to bring the person to work every day. This is something that is inhuman. And in terms of labor, considering the ILO principles, the International Labour Organization principles in which South Sudan is a member, that is not called decent work. And coupled with that is the very fact that this little money is not even paid out. As I'm talking now, we are having 6 months salary lagging for the government is still to pay. 6 months salary, not yet paid. From last year, some months from last year and others from this year. So this is a fact that South Sudan as a government, it needs to be corrected. If we don't do that, we cannot expect to get the qualified and really competent people to be working in the government. It is very difficult. As a youth, you want to establish yourself, you want to get married. And we know that marriage in South Sudan is very expensive. How can somebody maintain a family with a salary of, let's say, 6,000, I think is the salary of a director. Somebody who is joining the civil service in grade 9, I don't know, maybe the salary is around 3,000. For how long can you work in order to have a family? This is something that is not realistic. As I'm sitting, in the labor, I have a lot of people coming looking for employment, and they tell me frankly that they need employment in the private sector. I recommend them for the private sector and not the government. because how will they develop? And this is really a serious issue. And as a country, we need to look into this. You know, in other countries, the civil service, the government is the best employer because there are privileges. You get the opportunity to go for further studies, to specialize. These are always found in the government. But sorry to say that in South Sudan, these are lacking. Even the few scholarships that we get, where the country offering the scholarship will give us free tuition, free accommodation, but we are not able to give our people the ticket cost to go to that country. Now coming to employment in the NGO or in the UN system. You know, one thing I learned in the UN system, when you are applying, you should not make the mistake, even if you have very high qualifications. It is a mistake to apply for a job lower than your qualifications. If you do that, you are stuck. You cannot move. Even if there is a higher position, you may apply, but you will get that preference is given to people who are applying from outside. You, as somebody who has been working in a lower position, you know, it gets stuck into the mind of the panel that maybe you cannot perform something better than the position you are holding. So the best thing is always to look outside. If you are working in one agency within the UN, if you want really to progress, you need to apply when there is an advert in another sister agency, then you apply there, maybe then, because there is nothing called also promotion. Doris was talking of being stagnant in one position. You know, in the civil service, when you work in one grade for 4 years, or once you complete 3 years, you are now qualified to move to the next grade, to the next higher level. And usually you will be appraised by your supervisor. And then if there is a vacant position, based on how many of you are holding that position, then you can be recommended to the higher. There is something called promotion. But in the UN system, usually, as you are working, you have to look around. If there are adverts, even within the agency you are working in, you need to apply. And then you will compete the same with others and get that position. Usually they will say they have something called internal advertisement. If there is a position that is vacated, a senior position, then it will be advertised internally to the UN sister agencies or within that one agency. And then you apply and you compete. Everything is based on competition. And as you are working, there are opportunities for doing online courses. If you are in a certain line, you know, and most of the time they will divide into operations and programs. So like myself, my background is in accounting and finance. So I've been working most of the time in this area of finance. But there was one time when I was in UNDP here in Juba, I was interested in a program position, and it was a senior position, NOC. I applied together with people from outside and within. I competed. We had oral examinations, written and oral, and I was recommended by the panel. But then the assistant program manager, the program manager, the deputy program manager would not take me, would not give me that position. I was twice, I was put in the panel to be re-examined after the first recommendation and then the second panel, because my manager was in the first panel and they said, no, the results were biased. So they formed another panel. And it's still the second panel recommended me to that NOC position. I was in the HR, but I got fed up with this HR position. I did not like to continue working there. So despite the fact that I was recommended, I was not taken because they say, no, you are an operations person. How can you do core program work? Despite the fact that through self-promotion and learning, and then participating in a private women group, I'm well versed in, doing, writing proposals, reporting. And of course, my financial background helped me in that. But I was not taken just because I was an operations person, and it is not possible that an operations person can do program. I was considered to be inexperienced in program, despite the fact that I competed and I succeeded. So while working in the organizations, you need really to build yourself learning, continuous learning. Whenever you get an opportunity to upgrade yourself, you do that so that you accumulate as much as you are getting experience, you also have the certification for that. So this is very important, and you should not be looking within, you have to look outside. And once you are confident that you have that technical know-how, you have that competence, then you can apply, you venture and apply for a higher position. Sometimes we get contented and where we are, you know the environment around you. So you just sit there, not thinking of reaching out for a higher position. I know for a long time I was working under the supervision of others, and I really got stuck. But good enough, I had friends who actually initially, they advised me and they encouraged me to apply for the position of Director General for Admin and Finance. That is when I entered the Ministry of Labor, the position where Dr. Julia was in my panel, the chair of that panel. And if I were not to get that encouragement from the friends, I was thinking that maybe I'm not competent enough. To be the DG, it was a big thing. I look at it as a big thing for me at the time. So even I did not have the guts of applying for that position, thinking that I was incompetent. But all the same, you need to be able to venture out. So in the NGOs, let's say, the work attitude also is very important. And that is something that in some of us South Sudanese is lacking. We are not serious about the job we are holding. We don't value the job that we have. Because you can just absent yourself just like that and not go to work without any excuse, without calling, without giving any information. And you take it for granted that the following day, after 1 month or so, you go back to place of work and you continue. That cannot be. If you are in the private sector or in the NGOs, you cannot do that. That is not the conduct of work. And of course, even in the civil service, we have the conduct, how you can conduct yourself in your workplace. All those are there. The regulations Dr. Julia was talking about, they were developed some 4 years back, I think, and they have been stuck in the Ministry of Justice. Just to be, maybe Dr. Julia, you can follow on that, just to be approved from there and then implemented. But the civil service regulations are stuck for the last 4 years or 5 years in the Ministry of Justice. So, all in all, one has to be outgoing. And I would say that even in the UN or in the NGOs, we cannot say 100% that that the employment is fair and ethical. Maybe in principle that is there, but in practice that is not the case. I can assure you of that, having worked in UNDP in the HR unit. We have positions where somebody holding a higher position would like the position to go to his friend who is outside. I remember I worked in UNDP in Juba here from 2007 up to 2010. When I left voluntarily on my own, I could not continue because, there was no job satisfaction in the work I was doing in the human resource and administering, of course, the payroll. Too much work, too much stress, without any appreciation. So I said, it's not only, I don't work for a salary only, but I need to have some satisfaction, that I'm doing something for my country. I found I was being stressed and really no impact. I think I was -0, any contribution to my country. I was giving support to the UNDP, but what was UNDP doing to improve the situation in South Sudan? If you analyze, then I found I was stressed for no reason. And that is why I left the NGOs. And I feel in the government, even if I'm not getting any direct benefit in terms of salaries or whatever, personal benefit, but I have 100% job satisfaction. I know any initiative that I put in place, I will see it to light. It will succeed. If it is in form of laws, if it is in form of contributing towards of any initiative or a program that we want to do, I am 100% sure that if I can present it well, it will see the light of the day. And somebody else will reap the benefit if it is not myself. So, yeah. At this juncture, I think working in the NGO for some time, it may be satisfying, but after a certain age, I think it's no longer. Because you don't look for personal benefit, you don't look for the salaries that you are receiving, but you know, as a human being, you need to grow, you need to be recognized, you need to see what are the benefits of the work, whatever work that you are doing to the populace, to your community. You need to be able to translate it and see that, yes, I have done something. And yeah, I think, I don't know whether I have covered everything, but I don't think recruitment is 100% transparent or fair, even in the UN agencies. It is a clique, it is a group of people working together, promoting each other, drawing each other. Once you go to another country, you know, and then even this advertisement, when it is advertised, or we cannot blame the organization that I said to be having only one tribe. Sometimes it is not intentional, because maybe your tribe are the people you know. Once there is an advertisement, you will inform your people that there is an advert here, please apply. You encourage them, they apply. And like Doris mentioned, you know, some people think that you need somebody to hold you by the hand and say, this is the job for you to get a job. No, this is not the case. Me, for one, usually I don't depend for somebody to recommend me to a position, but usually some people will come looking for me and say, oh, please, Mary, there is a job there. And then I apply and I get it. So you need to be able to be outgoing, to venture out, not to be within a close circle and think that, you know, you cannot make it, oh, this is too high for me. There's nothing like that. You need to be able to be confident of yourself, the area you are well prepared for, and if you are gearing to reach a certain position, study, prepare yourself. Look at the whatever data, whatever information is there about that job, and I think you can make it. Everything here, there's nobody born knowing. We all learn. And through that, you have to have the effort to learn and to improve and to progress. And yeah, this is very important. And I want to say something concerning labor. We do encourage, you know, self-employment. We are doing a lot of training currently. There is a project that the Kingdom of the Netherlands is funding, and UNDP is implementing it in coordination with the Ministry of Labor. And we are giving skills to the youth that are targeting the labor market, skills that are needed in the market. We know that in South Sudan, hotel business was run mostly by people from countries in the region. But now we are training South Sudanese youth to be able to take over. And this today I've been sitting in the office signing a lot of certificates. I don't know, hundreds of certificates for youth already who are trained in this area of hospitality, and I think building, electrical installations, areas that we really need in South Sudan, and which have been dominated by people from the region. And gradually, you know, we are trying to empower the youth to take over. And it can be self-employment, or they come as a group and try to create jobs for themselves. So this is what we are encouraging. Good enough, in this project, we are giving them the starting kit. They get something, the tools and whatnot to start with. So we are very much working on that. Another one is a project also in the same area, funded by the African Development Bank. It is still a pilot project, but we'll be doing this targeting 100 youth, 1,000 youth, and after that, we will surely receive further funding to train our youth. But we need to change our work attitude. You know, I mentioned already earlier, but this is a problem. We have noticed that in some, even the construction site in South Sudan, instead of our youth working, it is people from the region still who are the workers carrying the bricks, carrying what, the mortar, because our youth, our people of South Sudan, they absent themselves anyhow. You cannot depend on them, and they come to work drunk, and this is something that cannot be tolerated, especially in a building site What if something happened, even an accident, you know, you're coming to work drunk or absenting yourself because there is a funeral of this relative, the other day a funeral of that other relative, the other day marriage. You know, these are excuses that cannot be taken. If you really want to develop, you want to work. So we have to change our attitude. And I don't know how we can work on that. We are discussing with the workers, South Sudan Workers Federation and the employers, maybe to be able to do some sort of projects to educate our people on work ethics, how to conduct yourself in the place of work. And yeah, one other thing that I want to mention as an achievement of the Ministry of Labor, the change of the official time for South Sudan. This has been initiated by the Ministry of Labor because we realized that when we were in GMT +3, you know, 5 o'clock in the, 6 o'clock in the morning was still very dark, and we cannot expect people to be starting to go to work. Given the security situation in the country, it is a challenge, and for children also going to school. So we changed back actually to the right time of South Sudan on the globe. And it is GMT +2. And this is the timing that we're having now. And I can say this is an achievement initiated by the Minister of Labor. We passed it through the cabinet, and now we are back to our original time. So I would conclude with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mary. You unpacked a lot, and we learned a lot from that discussion. So just a follow-up question to your discussion. What jobs are considered for the local people of a particular state? And if any, do you have a classification for jobs?
Okay. You know, of course, concerning in the civil service, we have no say there because usually it is the government, it's the people of the state who will be working there anyway. So in the civil service, we have no say. But coming to the private sector and the NGOs, like we mentioned earlier, we have the position of, I did mention that the security guard, the cleaner, driver should be from the state. And including, you know, like some NGOs, they use community mobilizers. So the community mobilizer should be a person from that community who would be able to mobilize their own people and who would not need translation once they are given the message to communicate to the community. So these are the areas, the jobs that we are saying it should be from that state. But any other technical or professional position should be subjected to competence of all national South Sudanese. This is the job for the nationals. But if somebody from that state has the competence, then priority will be given to that person from that state. But if the competence is not available in that state, then any competent South Sudanese from any part of the country should be able to take that job based on the competence, going through the fair recruitment process. Not somebody handpicked from another state to be taken to another state. This will not allow, it's not according to the regulations we have put down for recruitment. But yeah, if there is no competent person. And then again, we are saying the advert, as much as the advertisement is placed in the national capital in Juba here, it should be placed also in the state so that people in the state will be aware and they can apply. Now, through this portal, I think all the jobs, even those applied online, people who are in these capitals of the states also where the portal will be, they'll be able to apply online. But others, you know, from other places, depending on the facilities they have, they should be able to apply and compete. So employment should be based on merit, that you have the experience, you have the requirement for that position, and you are passed through this panel to get the position. But as I informed you earlier, we are not able to put our feet on the ground and monitor and ensure that what we are recommending in the guidelines are followed strictly. One thing I mentioned is that also the officials sometimes who are tasked to monitor these processes. Then they will bring their interest into the process and spoil it altogether. So we still need to work out and see to it that what you are putting down as guidelines are really practically taken into consideration and followed. This is something we have to continue working on. It is not something that you do once and for all, but you have to continue monitoring, to continue improving and working on this. So this is what I can say concerning jobs in the states.
Okay. Thank you so much, Honorable Mary. We will go on to our panelists and hear their challenges, to the challenges and the conclusions as we wrap up. And for Ms. Jocelyn, tell us what are the challenges facing the youth of South Sudan and what are your recommendations moving forward?
Thank you so much, Achik. I think before I go to the challenges, I would like to also make some points just to comment on some of the points that have been highlighted by my colleagues. I would like to say that employment should be based on merit, yes, but then also we should always try to encourage also local recruitment. And when you talk about qualification, it shouldn't only be solely based on academic credentials. Apart from just academic credentials, we also have other requirements that a candidate should meet in order for them to perform some duties. And in that regard, we also look at the language requirements. And if you look at some positions that are really being held by people from other regions, apart from the natives of those in that particular location, these are positions that it requires someone to be able to interact and work with beneficiaries, of which these areas are in very remote areas. And most of the time, we find that the people who are hired because of their qualifications are not able to speak that language. So we end up relying more on interpreters or maybe volunteers and all that. So it's also, if you look at the UN ways, if you look at their requirements, there are certain positions. If you've ever gone to the UN website, there are certain positions that are considered, it's prioritized for certain countries. Those are countries that are undeveloped and all that. They have the first tier, the second tier. So this should also be applied in the sense of in South Sudan. Like, there are certain positions that we should be able to put in the requirements that people from this in Akobo are highly encouraged to apply or should be the first priority. And if we don't get people from there, then we go to the second one. It is there. So I don't see the reason why it shouldn't be applied also in South Sudan. An example of a case worker, these are positions that really could be occupied by the natives. I would go to the challenges. Conflicts caused by socioeconomic issues are not unique to South Sudan. It happens everywhere, almost everywhere in the world. We've seen xenophobia in South Africa. The same thing that happened in Bangladesh when I was there in 2019. The host community protested for several weeks on the street because most of the jobs are being taken by the Rohingya refugees. So we have to look at, it's not something that we would say it's a South Sudanese mentality. No, it's a human nature, because this is a source of livelihood to many. But looking at some of the ways how these countries are tackling these issues, first, like I'll give an example, a case study of Bangladesh. This is a response to the Rohingya refugee influx in Bangladesh. And if you look at it, most of the time when we are asked to recruit for the local staff, we are encouraged actually to look for someone who speaks a certain language. And if you look at it, where the Rohingyas are in Cox's Bazar, it's in Chittagong. So most of the time we'll put the language requirement there that someone who speaks Chittagonian. So when we are doing this recruitment and the interviews, we emphasize on that, because we want to make sure that we are interacting with our beneficiaries and we have someone who understands them and will be able to get exactly some of the issues that they're facing. This is the same thing also with the UN. If you look at there's a language requirement somewhere. If it's a francophone country, they will write there, you need to make sure that this person speaks French, So these things should also be, we should try to also emulate it when it comes to avoid some of the conflicts that we are having in South Sudan. Yes, we should hire people from all regions of South Sudan, but we should also have some considerations, some positions that we have to make sure that the local people are able to hold. And it shouldn't only be or the cleaners or the mobilizers and all that, because when we start sending out these narratives, there are some other NGOs will take it wrongly and think, okay, since we have given the Akobo, the cooks, the cleaners, and the drivers, there is no need of even now trying to ensure that there is local recruitment of the Akobo people also in the technical aspect of it, The other also recommendation is localization of some of the managerial positions. This is something that is really happening. It's happening right now. There are so many international staff who are losing their jobs because the government is pushing for some positions to be given to the national staff. We have enough brilliant South Sudanese who are very capable of holding these positions. In Bangladesh, despite the fact of the language barrier, it's very hard to get people who really speak English. But what happened? 2019, the government pushed for it, and it's happening right now. Most NGOs, the manager position are given to the national staff because those are people, they are capable. Those are people who are living with this displaced population. And even before the international community came for the rescue of the Rohingya refugees, the Bangladeshi themselves are the one who are protecting. They are the same people who are offering services to these people. But now you come with your donation and said, okay, now we need to have international staff to hold such position. So the national staff is a backbone to any humanitarian intervention, and it's a core aspect of it. The other recommendations, sorry, I'll be rushing through and maybe will not touch on the challenges because of the time. We should also have employment skill fair at which the NGOs will offer, job-seeking youth technical assistance. You'll be having maybe a day or two or 1 week where different NGOs and the UN, put their stalls, their tents, and offer some technical assistance, explain to people what are some of the key things that they're looking for, requirements when they want to hire people and all that, So that is it. And then the other one is sensitization on the recruitment process. It is really, we should put these NGOs and UN on task. They should be able to have sensitization because most of the time the youth in South Sudan really do not even know the hiring process, how it goes, So there's always mistrust. Oh, there's this tribe is taking all and everything, but maybe they don't know how the hiring process is. So we need to sensitize people on that, The government as well. The government committee is to assess and investigate the NGO and UN. We are actually walking on eggshells here. People don't want to point the elephant in the room, that there is really tribalism and there is certain community. We even have Ugandans being employed as South Sudanese here, a number of them, but we all have a responsibility. We'll always throw it, how did they get the jinsia to get these positions? Or the government is failing. But who is the government? Even us ourselves, we have a responsibility to report such incidents. If I know someone is a Ugandan and is pretending to be a South Sudanese, then I have a responsibility. You need to be patriotic to make sure that you report these people, and it's up to them to go and prove whether they are South Sudanese or not, And there's an argument that, why are we focusing so much on this NGO job? There are other sectors and everything. My dears, NGO pays well. There are a lot of people who are being paid 15 to 20,000 US dollars. People are living lavishly. People are building skyscrapers, and these are foreigners. So all this money is going back to their country. It is high time for South Sudanese to also hold this position. This donation comes with strings attached. We are going, our generation, or maybe our children, are going to pay for these strings attached. You know, it's not just money given to us. We have to make use of this. We have to make sure that job opportunities, South Sudanese are benefiting it from it as well. You know, I strongly recommend also for the supervisors or the recruiting managers, because we always have this international staff really don't care whether this is a Madi or Kuku or Lotuko or something like this. So when they're doing the recruitment process, or if they even know that a whole department is being dominated by certain community, it is not their country. Sometimes they are here for their money. You know, they're here to do their job and go. But as South Sudanese, we have to make sure that these people are put to task. The hiring managers have to be accountable. They have to make sure that there are procedures that are being followed, you know. So I think that is it from my side. And in terms of the government, that's the last point. Sorry for taking long. The government, if you look at the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation, which is commonly known as the World Summit on Sustainable Development, it highlights on good governance and as an essential for sustainable development. So we have to have sound economic policies, solid democratic institutions in place. You know, with that, we'll be able to have other, investors. We'll be able to have other private sectors to offer job opportunities for our youth. You know, the same the Johannesburg implementation plan, also chapter talks about the need to strengthen employment and economic generating programs as a tool to eradicate poverty. The agenda also invites governments to establish, measures able to directly or indirectly generate remuneratory employment opportunities. So we are actually urging the government to make sure that there's a conducive environment for other livelihood opportunities in South Sudan, and we should not only rely on the UN or the NGOs and all that. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Jocelyn, for that. And on top of the list for our take home today is accountability. That is what we hear from you, holding agencies accountable, holding private sector accountable for all that they do in our country. So we will move on to Ms. Viola Riak. Ms. Viola, what are the challenges facing the women of South Sudan, and what are your recommendations moving forward?
Thank you very much, Achik. I think because of time, I'll rush very, very quickly. I just want to say that women want to be in a paid employment. So this thing of like women want to take care of children, they want to cook, no. They want to be paid. They want to be paid equally as their counterparts. But the persistent socio-economic barriers keep them out of the workplace. So identifying and quantifying these barriers and looking for strategies on how we can respond to eliminating them will go a long way. Now, what do we need as a South Sudan? We need to close the gender gaps in the labor force. So this is not just good for the women, but it's good for the economy of South Sudan as a whole, as I mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of recommendations, I would like to say that, again, equal pay for equal work for value. So we need to remunerate our women and men for equal pay equally. There's another element which I need to mention, I think, in this discussion, is we need to really look at strategies on how we can prevent violence, and this includes harassment. And by harassment, I mean sexual harassment, which is happening. We don't want to say it's not happening. It's happening. It is preventing women from seeking jobs. It is actually giving husbands the fear that if I allow my wife to go and work, she will not be safe. She will be sexually harassed. So we need to have policies that are really safeguarding women in the workplace, including from sexual harassment. Another issue that we really need to work, and I think I'm happy that we have Dr. Julia here and Honorable Mary from the public service, is that we need to create a harmonized work-life balance for our employees, for both men and women. What do I mean? You know, women also carry this burden of our reproductive health role, reproduction role. So if we're going for maternity leave, for example, I know our public service is about 45 days. Is that enough? Is that adequate for a mother to leave a 45 days year-old baby, 3 months? So I think we really need to look at this and see how we can really create a work-life balance environment for men and women. Now, equal representation of women, including in the management, in the managerial roles, if it is the ministries, the high leadership, if it is NGOs and the UN, we need to ensure that we have women representing in the senior management level. My last point here will be also we need to invest in the future of work for women. What do I mean? We need to prioritize our girls' education. That's very, very important. So if we ensure that we have equal boys and equal girls going to school, we are highly able to achieve an equal gender equal labor force in the near future. So we really need to eliminate barriers that prevent girls' education. We need to look, as a country, we need to look at the gender roles. Are we distributing household chores equally? Are we abandoning one person over the other? So we really need to look at these issues and ensure that at least household chores are being shared by both genders. And also that will give the women the opportunity to be able to seek for paid work rather than doing the unpaid job that they spend a lot of their time in. I think because of time, I beg to stop from here.
Thank you so much, Viola. We will go to Ms. Doris. Doris, what are your additional comments on challenges facing the youth? And what are your recommendations moving forward? And with time in mind, please, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Achek, I didn't get you quite clearly on the question.
Oh, the challenges that are facing the youth in South Sudan, just your brief notes and the recommendations moving forward.
Okay, I think a lot has been said on the challenges, inadequate job opportunities, lack of job opportunities in terms of both in private and public sector. I think that the youth have to work on building their capacity. They need to continuously learn, look for opportunities of learning that is both online and offline. We are living in a very technologically advanced world, so youth need to look for online learning platforms to build their capacity. Another challenge facing the youth is the big elephant in the room that we have mentioned as corruption and nepotism, and we really need to resolve that. All of us have a role to play. I think organizations should take such allegations very seriously. HR or hiring personnel who are involved in this malpractice need to be held accountable. Disciplinary measures need to be utilized in order to prevent this from happening. And secondly, the government also needs to exercise their checks and balances to ensure that such malpractices and such violations do not continue to exist. So as staff working in the NGOs or in government, we need to report such cases. Aggrieved candidates should also report such incidents to the right channels and following the complaint mechanisms. So youth, let's not get discouraged about all of what is happening in our work environment currently. We need to be resilient. As South Sudanese, we are known to be resilient. So we just need to look for opportunities to improve on ourselves and to also become job creators rather than job seekers. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Doris. We'll go to Dr. Julia. You have discussed a lot of challenges facing the public sector and service. So what are your recommendations moving forward?
These are so many challenges, sometimes we put our fingers in there and we cannot be able to resolve them. Let me just give a few, and I will concentrate more on the recommendations. One, the first thing is the inconsistent in the system. The ministries are amalgamated, and then we go for a certain period of time, they are divided. So it has been really, it has created instabilities in some institutions. As public service, labor were one. I think this is the second time they were divided. The first time, last time, they divided them, they brought them back. The same thing with the higher education and general education. They were together, now they are divided, then they come again and then are divided. So to me, that creates instability in the system. So there is no much concrete things that can be done to stabilize those, uncertainties. The other thing is weak linkages between the national and subnational. A system has to be one, whether you are in the national level or in the subnational. The linkages are very weak. The ministries at national should have been the one providing policies and give guidelines to the states, and there also follow up, and even the capacity of those local government need to be done. So to me, that is one weakness. Also, we have talked about the low salaries. Economics, poor economic system, budgetary is very limited when you budget, certain ministries and the other ministries. You really get limited resource for you to run those institutions. Going back to what we are talking, our priorities, although what kind of an envelope that the national have, there should be priorities, and we are not doing those priorities. If they are done, they remain in the paper without implementation due to some of the interruption or things like that. Poor ethics work, employees come, and I don't really blame them, when somebody come late and you don't, there is no motivation. You don't motivate them so that they can be able to love their job and be able to come to work on time, looking forward to something. So when you come, it's the same old story. The chairs are broken, whatever, things like that. So the morale completely go down. So I think that's one of the things, and we have so many social activities. People go for funerals, for celebration. My daughter is being married, and you don't talk about the job. You say, I'll go and find it tomorrow, and you do other things. So that poor work ethics it is ingrained in children when they are in primary school, coming to secondary school, and then to university. You have to ingrain that one in the children. Poor infrastructure, now there is more technology is needed to run these offices. So we need people who have background in computers so that we can computerize the information. And so when we're still doing things manually, you type the letter, you file it. Tomorrow you ask the person, can I have that copy? It will take the whole day to try to look where that copy has gone. So that is, to me, is a big challenge. We need to do a lot on that. For salaries, management of public service records, we are not keeping records of the people, or the files are just really in disarray, and sometimes some people don't find their files. Is another area which is a big challenge. What can be done to address these challenges? One, human and institutional capacity. the number one resource in the country is not the material resource. It is the human beings, So if you invest in your people, you move your country forward because you develop this human resource to be able to develop material resource, So it should be a priority that we invest in our people. We need to improve the policies, as Mary was saying before. Some of these are still with the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. We need to follow up those policies so that they can be implemented and can guide people in work. Third, decent work. We really need to begin to cater for our workers. Even if the salary is too low, let it come. Frequently. If we say we pay people on the 30th, let it be on the 30th for God's sake. Even if it is just one pound and it comes regularly, you will be able to think of how to use it. We don't compensate our people on the real work they do. And that's one of the challenges which kill morale of people to move on. Management of human resource, as I said earlier, entry, you bring in young people, then you keep them also, you train them, you cater for them while they are working. And when they exit with dignity. Provision of effective support services, like when you go to places of work, just even simple place like toilet, they're not in a place, So you stay there, you are expected to stay there until 5 o'clock. For God's sake, you have to jump in the car and go back home and then come back. It's something we need to begin to do as we know a story, me and Mary, so that's why she's laughing. she's laughing. So we need to, workplace to be decent so that we can all empowering recruitment board. It has been, recruitment board since I left. It has really been hailing and it ended up with only very junior staff in the recruitment board. So it was my baby, and when I saw it, I really almost cried. I said, I neglected this baby of mine is neglected. So we need really to empower recruitment board. There are some cutting areas, themes which I call them justice issues, gender equity, youth employment, people with disabilities, HIV/AIDS, all these things are part of and parcel of the ministries. We need to take care of those. We need also to create counseling areas for our employees, because sometimes when you have a very tough leader, it can really drain you, So you need where you can go relieve that stress out and be able to, and be able to refresh and come back to work. Collaboration with the partners, with the international communities. There are so many programs that are coming to South Sudan, as the young people were talking about it, and our people are not there. We as a government need to know what is that being brought to us and how it is being done. And also to see that our people are part of that program. Like now, South Sudan is a no man land. Anybody coming somewhere else will go to the immigration and get, especially the neighbors, our neighbors, Uganda and Kenya. They come, and they get the, South Sudanese passport and ID, and they are. And tomorrow, if we started shooting, they are the first people to run to their other countries. So these are some of the things we need to improve. Collaboration with educational institutions. Particularly higher education, to develop their programs that address the needs of the country in terms of skill. Looking at polytechnics. Schools which can provide even just to pick, the electricity, or even building. Now, Ugandans are the one building our buildings. And South Sudanese were building in Khartoum. We were building, we build Khartoum. Why can't we not build ours? So we need to see that our education system, revise their curriculum and be able to bring out the skills that are needed in the country, instead of just, you graduate, so many lawyers, and so many lawyers, some of them it is only the government going to employ them, some may be in the market, and they are overflatted. And then you have very few doctors, where like today in South Sudan, when we are looking for an orthopedics doctor to help those who have broken legs and knees and all these things, it is only one, and that is a challenge, cannot cover the whole. So we need to cater at our schools to see that these skills are developed, and also for the government. Government has to go out. This is the area we need, more skills, and then the university or polytechnic school can pick it up and train that cadre so that we can come and fill in those positions. Promotion of health, healthy environment, and facilitation of industrial skills. Today, if we say we are going to revive those industries we were developed in the 70s, I know, like you have Anzara cotton or something. You have the farm in Yambio, the one for pineapples, those things. Now these things are dead. You have in Wow, a Gok factory for canning, fruits and vegetables canning. Now it's not working. You come to Tonj, there is Kanaf, a willy rice. You come to Yuru oil mill. In the 70s, we're not buying oil from outside. It was produced in Yuru and covered all South Sudan. Unless we come up with developing those minor industry to be able even to employ our young people, then we'll be able to make it. So training sometimes is very expensive. So what we can do is to bring those young people on board, and you train them through practical while they are observing. Like when internship, like now in the universities, kids are not allowed to come. Very few who come for internship. That one, the ministry has to go out, talk to the universities. We will have a show. Anybody who need to come for an internship, let them come. That's how people pick up their interest and what kind of job they will do. Relevant research, innovation, and ICT. We need to do that. Match up with the universities. So our challenges that are challenging us as a government can be able to be researched in our universities, and then we can be informed by that research how we can better ourselves. Build strong, build competitive private sector. We need to, private sector should be an area that, an area that relieves the government from too much concentration on employees, on looking for a job on the government. So if you have a strong public service and you have a strong private sector, then there is a competition. We will go and advertise. We want best, accountants. We want best financial specialists, and we compete with the private sector, and we take the best because we will be able to come and maintain them so that they cannot, migrate to the other. So we need to maintain the best of our best. Promote governance and civic responsibility and social justice. As I have said before, we need to take care of our vulnerable group, and we don't see women. We have programs. There is so many programs for women. Here is so much room in Juba. Women program, women for peace, women for. But when you come and sit down, exactly, you don't see the substance of what we are doing. And to me, it breaks my heart. We need to have substance. If we say we have a program for women, let's see what kind of program we can do for women so that they can become leaders, they can become business people, they become accountants, they can become, something like that. But instead of just mushrooming everything, I'm going faster because time is running on us. Put in place mechanism for addressing corruption in public institutions. You know, for God's sake, I know. I used to quarrel a lot. Like when I go for conferences, people will say, you know, there's so much corruption in Africa. That is before we became a country. And especially in, say, Nigeria. I will be the first one to jump up. Why they are abusing Africa? You know, in Africa, we don't have a lot. Even if you are an employee and you took only $100 and you go and change it, your family will look much better. They have, I see today they have charcoal, and somebody will see what happened to that. But in the West, they take millions in corruption. But the way they took it is that what has been given them to do, they will do it with make sure that at least they will offer that what they have been given, and they have put the little thing which is put inside, you check it, but you have to provide what you, here we don't have it. As soon as they gave you, you took it all and you get away with it and nothing you offer. So we need to manage, you know, our resources and be able to prioritize them, where to put. If we want to make education our program, we need to do it in a better way, have a budgetary that can cater for schools and better programs. If we say we want healthcare, we want roads, at least we should have something every year or every 3 years. We have done something for the country. Unless we don't do that, we will be mang, like what Garang was saying. Nina ba mang kida until we reach where we are going. Bring together government policies and programs that address citizen concern, people-centered, you know, policies and development are the only way you can lead your country. And my last thing, you know, I always share this one. My favorite, you know, liberator, African liberator, is Steve Biko in South Africa. Steve Biko. He said, you know, the Western world has given industrial and military might. The Western world has provided industrial and military might. But the best gift is yet to come from Africa. And what is that? It is the human face. How can we care for our people? Whether you are in public service or you are in private sector, we need to care for our people. So my big recommendation, as we are all here, and especially you young people, you have expressed that our country has become a no man's land. It is you now to help us, those of us who are working for the people, to be able to strategize and make South Sudan for South Sudanese first. We don't have people in Uganda who are working. We don't have people who are working. You know, we have position in African Union. We are not sharing that. And I think that is going to be one of my programs to map out how many foreigners are working in this country and how many South Sudanese who are working in African Union or in Kenya, and this is where we will have compromise. You employ our people, we will employ your people. If we do that, I think most of our young people will be able to get a job. They will not be begging anybody. They will be able to compete and get jobs in those countries. So it is a give and take. So Mary, you and me, let us work on give and take. You are not giving us, we are not allowing you to be here. And thank you so much to be with you, and my pleasure to be with all of you tonight, and especially my heart for the young people. You need to come, join us, and be able to build South Sudan together. Don't complain out there. You come inside, government is your government. Come and bring ideas. Mary is there, I will be there. We have also other colleagues that we will influence. Like earlier, we used to have Undersecretaries Forum. We are going to revise that, and we will always get ideas from the young people, and we take them to the Undersecretary Forum, and that what have been shaping our policies when I was in the government. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your invitation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julia, for your final remarks. I'm sure we were all cheering you on with your final remarks. With you and Honorable Mary on our having our backs, we sure will make it. We'll have our final panelist, Honorable Mary, give her final remarks on the recommendations moving forward. She discussed a lot of challenges facing the Ministry of Labor and efforts of creating more employment in South Sudan. So we'll just hear her recommendations moving forward and her final remarks. Honorable Mary, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It has been a pleasure discussing with you and shedding some light into the labor issues within South Sudan. I don't really have much to recommend, but I think the bottom line for South Sudan to be able to take off and create better employment opportunities is the security situation in the country. We have all the resources that any country in the world would wish to have. Like what they are saying, that we are too rich for our own good. The resources that we have are somehow having a hand in generating the type of problems we are, grappling with as a country. And of course, we need to go back to the land, to till the land and benefit from the produce of the land. And this is one thing that will maybe remove the too much unemployment within South Sudan. We have the resources, unlike other countries, we have the natural resources, we have the land, virgin land that we can till and really feed ourselves and the region or part of the world with us. But now we cannot be able to go back to the land because of the insecurity in the country. Even around Juba here, you cannot cultivate. I keep quoting an example that last year I was able to plant groundnuts, like one, not even a fedan, a small space of groundnuts, but then it was not me who harvested. I did the planting, the clearing of the land, the planting, and the weeding, but finally when it came to harvesting, some other people harvested it. So this demotivates somebody who would like to, to go back to the land. And frankly speaking, the insecurity in the country is a major issue. It's why development is not taking off. Some of these youths, they could be self-employed. Just growing vegetables is enough to sustain their lives and even help others. But now we cannot do that. We are importing the least items from our neighbors, which we should be producers and not consumers only. So this is really a major thing to secure. And maybe it is beyond this panel, but this is something that maybe in other circles we can discuss, and we need to be able to reach some compromise so that we can benefit from the resources that we have as a country. Another thing is, no matter what the UN is doing, what the other NGOs that are in this country, over I think 400 or 500 NGOs in the country, no matter what they do, it will not develop this nation. The whatever salaries we are receiving from these NGOs, the few nationals who are able to get the jobs, this money is also taken outside the country because we are sustaining families outside the country in schools, in whatnot. So the money is not really plowed back into the economy of South Sudan. This money is taken outside. So for any development, substantial development to take place in South Sudan, as a government, really we need to allocate enough resources for the government agencies to become operational. They should be able to oversee whatever challenges were raised, the monitoring, the whatnot. You cannot do it without resources. And unless the government is fully in control and is able to monitor all these companies, agencies coming from outside working in this country, we will not be able to take off as a country economically. So this is very important when it is system of job opportunities or whatnot. The government agencies that are working, They should be able to operate. They should be facilitated to be able to operate. We should be able to go to the states, bring the states workers here so that we can meet together and coordinate and be on top of everything. But this is not happening. We are here in the national government trying to lay the policies, but the state is not capacitated to implement. So we are creating, inconsistencies in between. We are having a different understanding here. The state level is having a different understanding, and we do not have the platform to bring us together so that we can coordinate and speak one language. Like in the Ministry of Labor, it should be the Labor Act, whether in the national ministry or in the state ministries, we should be speaking the same language. But this is not happening. And this coordination, even between the government institutions, we are not able to have this coordination. So unless we fully commit ourselves as people of this country, seeking the interests of the nation, allocating enough budget to be able to carry out the activities and the supervising role as a government, operating fully, we will not be able to move forward. So I'm not trying to like to think it is impossible. Everything is possible when we commit ourselves, but we really need the commitment of us, people of this country, to own this country as our own and not behave as people who occupied this nation and everybody is trying to loot and take their whatever they loot. We should behave as owners of this land. This is our country, these are our people, and we need to see that, like Dr. Julia said, South Sudan is first. We need to put ourselves first. And every development strategy, everything should be people-centered. It should be the people. We consider our interests, the people of South Sudan first and foremost. Once we are able to do this, then the sky will be our level. We'll be able to reach other levels and develop as a nation. So I thank you for giving us this opportunity, for the discussion, for the insight. Our offices are open, and we'll accept, any proposals or suggestions that are coming from you to improve on the way we are conducting our work, so that we can be able to perform to the best of our capacities. So I thank you very much and wish all the best for this platform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Mary. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. As we wrap up this interesting discussion, I would like to thank our great panelists for taking their time to participate today. Thank you all for tuning in with us. And I would like to thank our team members working behind the scenes, and especially the UN Women for providing the internet for our great panelists in Juba and a safe space for this discussion. So we have now come to the end of our show today. Good morning, good evening, and good night to all of you, wherever you are. Thank you, and may God bless you all.